Hello, Paulo Synthmania. Velocity Press sent in the Synthesizer Evolution book for review. Thank you very much. From analog to digital and back. This is a new book on synthesizers. Let's take a look. Alright, the author of this book is Olli Freek, and there is an introduction to the author. Olli Freek is a London-based musician, artist, and author who has had a lifelong passion for analog synthesizers and electronic music. He has spent 20 years in the music industry. His Synth Evolution posters, launched in 2017, have become a popular product among synth fans, and he was commissioned to produce a version. And the really cool thing about Olli, he illustrates the whole book with really nice hand-drawn pictures of synthesizer. Like this one here is a Moog System 35. So introduction, synthesizer, drum machine, samplers, pre-modern instruments. And now here's an interesting fact in the preface. A schoolboy, a school library, and a book. The school was my secondary school, and the library book was Keyfax 2 by Julian Kolbeck. For what seemed like every lunchtime, my friend Raphael and I would pore over the pages of Keyfax 2 and Keyfax 3. Why? Because within its pages were the details of all the synthesizer of our dreams. Yeah, I did exactly the same thing when I was a kid with earlier books, but I also have all the Julian Kolbeck books. I have all of them. Introduction: the synthesizer has revolutionized music and culture over the last 60 years. And this book sets out to celebrate their impact. So he talks about the pre-modern electronic instruments, proto-synthesizers, such as the Nova chord, the invention of the modern synthesizer with Don Buchla and Robert Moog, and then it goes, evolves, and beyond analog, digital synthesis and FM, digital samplers. So here he gives you a bit of a history of the synthesizer. And that's Core Prophecy. Very cool. Then he goes on to explain what a synthesizer is, what is an analog synthesizer, and how it generates sounds. The classic diagram from left to right of VCO, mixer, VCF, VCA, and output, and the different types of synthesis, additive, FM, sample and synthesis, analog and physical modeling. And then very interesting are the abbreviations, a key. So if you're new to synthesizers and generally the electronic world, these are really handful to have in a coffee table book, such as divide down. This method to create Foley polyphony is usually found in organs, string synths, and ensemble synths. An oscillator is fixed to the top octave and its voltage is divided down to create lower frequencies. Or FM, frequency modulation, the synchronization and modulation of two or more digital oscillators to create harmonically rich waveforms, patented by John Chowning of Stanford University. Linear arithmetic, Roland's name for sample and synthesis. Also Super LA. Yeah, the Super LA was the D70, which wasn't quite a LA, but then you got paraphonic, polyphony, semi-modular, and so forth, wavetable. And then it starts talking about the synthesizers here. And what I like about this book, it is not a very technical book, meaning he doesn't list all, how many voices the synthesizer have, or how many effects, how many keys, all the specifications. For that, you're better off going these days to the internet and look them up. But the only problem is that you have to go one by one, and this is a really nice way in a small size book to have all this information at a glance. So I really like what he's doing here, and I like the pictures a lot. For example, this is a 360 Systems digital keyboard from 1982. It gives you the date and a short description. So it works on samples and synthesis, 8-note polyphony, 1 waveform per voice. The world's first commercial synth to use samples used one chipset per sound, each of which could be swapped out for new voices or could have more voice cards added. This is the brand, then it's another brand, Axis, the Virus, Ace Electronics. See what it's got here. ARP, of course, the classic ARP. It's really amazing how he was able to do all these drawings of the classic keyboards. I don't know if it was tracing them or just drawing them by hand, but it's really cool the way he did it. So for example, you got the classic ARP 2600 here from 1971, analog, mono, 3 VCOs. This influential and famous synth gained ARP the reputation they still enjoy. It was used by Ben Burtt to perform R2-D2's voice in Star Wars. So yeah, it gives you these interesting tidbits about each synth. He does the same for the ARP Odyssey. Peter Howell, Doctor Who theme, revived by Korg in 2015. So yeah, just straight to the point of the cool things about the synthesizer. ARP string ensemble, full polyphony, divide down, a rebadged Solina string ensemble derived from the eminent 310 unique organ. And so he goes through all the brands. You got Behringer here, or Behringer, and Casio. Of course, a classic Casio VL1. Let's see what he says about this one. The world's first commercial digital synthesizer, immortalized by Trio's Da 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 in 1982. And I remember when that song came out very well. Love that song. Generates sound using Walsh functions, algorithms that can describe complex waveforms. Yes, I remember by pressing a button and combinations of number, you could change the sound, the filter, the envelopes, and the LFO of the VL1. A really cool keyboard it was, and still is. The Casio CZ. And then you got Clavia, Curtis Electromusic Specialties, these are chips. And Krumar. So there's okay, here for example, Krumar GDS, based on the Bell Labs digital synthesizer. The GDS was the productionized version and made use of the Z80 chip. Wendy Carlos used the GDS for the Tron 1982 soundtrack. Dupfer, Emu. Here the classic Elka Synthex, the sound of Jara's Laser Harp, Third Rendezvous, 1986. The Elka Rhapsody 610, a well-regarded string synthesizer used by Jar, Tangerine Dream, and Klaus Schulze. Other model of Rhapsody included the 490. EML, EMS, and Sonic, Freeman, and so on. Interesting fact here, the M500 micro preset by Korg, as he said, analog mono 6 presets. OMD used the very recognizable presets on their early singles here. The Korg 770 Human League Dare album for the bass lines. So you get all these interesting tidbits. You know, if you're starting with synthesizer, you're definitely interested in this. The Korg MS-20, Korg Classic Semi-Modular Daft Punk, Da Funk, and Mr. Oizo Flat Beat use the Korg MS-20. Kurzweil, Moog, of course. Here, for example, The Source by Moog, the first Moog to offer patch memory and a built-in sequencer, New Order, Blue Monday bass line. On the Roland Jupiter 8 analog, 1981, 8-note polyphony, 2 VCOs per voice, one of the classic polysynths of the analog era. Queen, Radio Gaga bassline pads, Ian Hammer, Crockett's theme bassline. And of course the classic DX7, 1983, FM 16-note polyphony, 6 operator. The FM synthesizer that changed the soundscape of the 80s. The TX7 was a tabletop version. The audio output of both was mono. Famous for its electric piano, Whitney Houston's Saving All My Love for You, 1985. Brian Eno was also a champion of the DX7. Then there is a section on drum machines, very well appreciated here. And there's a little bit of a history of the drum machine. It's got a word on the selection. Unlike the synthesizer chapter, this drum machine chapter isn't intended to be a comprehensive survey. Instead, it focuses on the more important, interesting, or influential drum machines made between 1963 and 1995. These are the ones that represent the first of the kind, were particularly successful, or became embedded in a particular genre. And of course, it's got the T808 here. So we have for instance, the Akai MPC-60, 1988, 32 PCM sounds, and 12-bit sampler, 16-note polyphony sequencer. The first of the MIDI Production Center, MPC, workstations used extensively in hip-hop and other electronic styles, designed by Roger Lynn and David Cockerell. So you got the Korg Donkomatic. The Donkomatic uses a rotary disc triggering sounds with brush contacts and so forth. You got a lot of drum machines here. The movement drum computer, for example, used in the Eurythmics Sweet Dreams. And then it goes on to samplers and a little history of and how they work and the list of samplers. You got the classic Akai S900 from 1986, 12-bit, 7.5 kilohertz to 32 kilohertz, 11.7 seconds at 40 kilohertz in mono. 8-note polyphony. The S900 was a significant step up from the S612 in terms of sample quality and memory. Yep, I remember very well when it came out because I wanted one. Casio sampler, of course, a classic SK1 from 1985, 8-bit, 4-note polyphony. Although a toy, it samples and even has an additive synth function. That's right. Of course, the emulators. Kurzweil, Fairlight, Synclavier, of course. And then he talks about the pre-modern instruments. So he talks about vacuum tubes, digital computer, experimental music, and the Telharmonium, the Theremin, the Mighty Wurlitzer, the Old Martenot, Trotonium, and so forth. Very interesting. Acknowledgement and special thanks. And there are other books on Velocity Press that you can buy. The back cover, from acid house to prog rock, there is no form of modern popular music that hasn't been propelled forward by the synthesizer. As a result, they have long been objects of fascination, desire, and reverence for keyboard players, music producers, and fans of electronic music alike. Whether looking at an imposing modular system or posing with the DX7 on top of the pops, the synth has also always had an undeniable physical presence. This book celebrates their impact on music and culture by providing a comprehensive and meticulously researched directory of every major synthesizer, drum machine, and sampler made between 1963 and 1995. Each featured instrument is illustrated by hand and shown alongside its vital statistics and some fascinating quirky facts. From its invention in the early 60s to the digital revolution of the 80s, right up until the point that analog circuits could be modeled using software in the mid-90s, this book tells a story of analog to digital and back again, tracing that history and showing off their visual beauty with art book quality illustration. This is a must for any self-respecting synth fan. So yeah, it's a really cool book. If you're starting out with synthesizers, you're curious to look at the history of the synthesizer and drum machines and samplers, this book will give you that, just facts, important facts that you should know in an easily accessible format. Just a small book you can keep on your nightstand or read whenever you have a moment. And I really, really like the pictures. So yeah, cool book. I'll put the link to get this book below in the description. Thanks again to Velocity Press for sending it. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Thanks.